Yo. All right, we're gonna get this thing rolling. Let me grab my drink. Snap. Okay. I gotta put the thumbnail on. Live streams, man. These live streams be throwing me off. We're live though. How we doing? Let's go. All right. Okay. I'm excited for this one. This is gonna be good. Drop that beat. Hey yo, we gotta we do need a beat. We do need a beat. No, that's oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna play the preset. Let me no, that's not a preset. Let me not do it like that. We do have one saved on, I'm just gonna run that one. Let's just there we go. Yeah. Yep. All right. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I gotta turn this down though. I gotta turn this down. We're doing too much, man. All right, here we go. Oh, oh, there we go. Okay, I turned the wrong thing off. Chat, we're back, man. Look, this is random, but I wanted to do this because I was either gonna do this as a video or a live stream, but we're live. I forgot this thing was bubbling. I just don't. All right. Oh my gosh. But yeah, man. No, we're live, man. And I was like, let's do this live. Let's knock this out. Because I don't want to procrastinate on this. I don't want to not do this. I want to talk about this at least a little bit. And I do feel like a video could happen. But I think a video needs to be more focused than what this is going to be. For this to make sense. For this live stream to make sense, it's got to be a live stream. It can't be a video. It'll make sense. Trust me. I think I found some good stuff. I found some really good stuff that we can discuss today. I won't make this show too long, but we need to talk about this coaching staff because ever since it's been finalized, there's a lot of names that we haven't discussed. And I was like, yo, we got to dive into this. Like we need to talk about some of these. That's what we talk about, the assistant coaches, man. And I think this might be just the beginning. But even just the beginning is exciting. Like this is really exciting, man. And today the focus is going to be on some of these assistant coaches that we haven't talked about. And I think that the way it all is tying together, I'll even show some plays, but the plays aren't that important. I have a great video clip. That I came across today. This all started by seeing the Aiden Hutchinson stuff because initially I was like, yo, should we do a show on Hutchinson? That kind of thing. There wasn't enough there. I didn't feel like there was enough there to do a show on. I didn't. But I did find this cool article. Well, not article, but it was like I guess it was an article, but it was like a paragraph of what Aiden Hutchinson said about this, the coaching staff and all the coaching changes. And this got me started to like, yo, we got to dive into this. And I think it all ties together perfectly today. So that's what we're going to do, man. We're going to tie it all together. I did have the Aiden Hutchinson article part, like the paragraph part, but I moved like the scroller and it went to something completely different. Wait, can I look it up? Maybe I can look it up. Can I look it up? Oh, yeah, I found it. Okay, no, perfect. Yeah, so shout out to the article for coming back up. I don't know what happened. This is like a goofy thing where you like scroll and it just comes off the screen. I don't know why that's an option. It's an option. But this is where we're going to start things off, and then we'll get to the clips, and we'll get to how this all ties together because I found the perfect video today. When I found it, I was like, oh, this is gold. We got to talk about this. But anyways, who's in the chat? Daniel's in the chat. I see you, DT fan man. My guy's here. Vincent's in the building. He says, boom. The mock off-season video is awesome. I appreciate that. I definitely want to do another one. Because even after I was done, I was like, oh, I wish I would have changed this. This is one of those things where it's like you're never going to be satisfied, I feel like, completely. It is what it is. But I know if we do it again, I'll probably draft all new players for the most part. And I'll sign all new players just to do something different. But I definitely want to do it again. I want to approach it just from a different angle. Like, I want to do it again and, like, bring back Iffy and maybe not bring back Levi. And then kind of like make that the starting ground. Like that's where I have to kind of build out from. If he's going to be weird because I don't know what he's going to get paid, but that's going to be like the foundation. And then from there, just kind of build it out and see how things would change. But I definitely want to do another one of those. and I want to change the entire draft process because I actually had 2 like drafts. One that I was considering kind of going the direction of that I didn't, which I think would be still great. And it's perfect because it doesn't really tie along to the one that I did anyway. So, perfect. But anyways, before we get to this, Shep going to be a great DC. Fired up for Shepard. Fired up, dude. I don't have any of the Shepard quotes, by the way. I cheated. Y'all thought that's what you were getting, huh? Y'all thought when you click this video, you're like, oh, he's got to be talking about these Shepard quotes. None of them. I'm not talking about that at all. No, we're not doing that, man. That's baseline stuff. We really digging in today, chat. Okay, I got to calm down. Owls say hoo-hoo. Okay, that's crazy. I read that thinking, what's he? I thought you were talking about, like, you know, the first thing, because one of these coaches were from Temple. I'm thinking he's talking about Temple. Like, what are you talking about Temple for? My bad kids in the building. What up, though? Long time since I was able to catch you live. I know we got to do lives more. I'm thinking this offseason, man, maybe starting next week, we're going to go live every day. The problem is this week's kind of rough with where my homework's at, but I'm thinking going forward next week, we'll go live maybe every day. I think I'm going to find a time, whether that's early morning, afternoon. I don't know what time. It could be in the morning. Then people joining later can just watch this replay. But that's my goal. I don't want to make them super long, but I do want to do a show like every day, just touching on whatever's happening outside of, even if some of them are like, hey, this is our mock draft, we're just going to do a live mock outside of the draft breakdown videos, because there was supposed to be a second one today. I don't think it's going to come out today. Probably going to drop it on Saturday. And that'll be kind of my Saturday video. That way I have time to, I got like pages to write, bro. Dumb mock draft idea using PFF or WE. So you host, and when you get to each line's pick, choose your favorite 4 options, sell each to the audience, and finally pick. No, I'm with this. Like, I'm definitely with this. And I actually had King text me today about a player that he liked. I won't say who it is in case he doesn't want it out there, but he texted me today. I've been talking to Speak Easy a little bit as well. So I'd love to do this with a guest too, where like they could try to promote their player, maybe sell it to the chat a little bit more, because, you know, I'm going to have my biases too. So like, but I'm with it. Like we used to do that. I remember we used to mock the mocks. I want all that to come back. I have watched Andrew. You know what's crazy? I forgot that that's who you, oh, I spilled my water. I forgot that that's who you said. Is that who you said last show? I did watch Andrew. I liked him a lot. I'll be honest, he was almost in my mock draft. Let me see if I have my notes on him. I didn't do like a final grade. That's the one thing I didn't do with Andrew yet, but I think I could have based on how much I watched, if I remember correctly. Let me see. Dude, I'm glad that was the guy you were talking about. I completely forgot, if I'm being honest, but I'm glad that's who you were talking about, because I did watch him. So, Charles, we're good to go, man. We're good to go, man. I watched a lot of guys that I did not include in that video, which is why a second mock offseason needs to happen. Let me see if I can. Oh, man, it's in here somewhere, dog. It's in here somewhere. Hold up. Where's it at? I got too many players, dude. Okay. Yeah. 5'11.5", 190. He was from Clemson, went to Texas. I did watch him. Okay, we'll get to that. Let's go to this coaching thing, though. Spencer's a new member. Spencer, I appreciate you, Spencer. Build from Davenport. I would like to. I like this because I didn't bring him back. I'm not mad at it, though. If there is one change, maybe I'll bring back Davenport. I don't know what deal I'll give him. I don't think he'll have like a market value. He'll have like a market value to go off of. But I'm down to do it, especially when we talk about today, because what we're going to hit on today might make you even think like, yeah, bringing Davenport back might make a lot of sense. That might make a lot of sense. But no, I did like Andrew, man. The dude was a hitter. I think the safety class is pretty strong, if I'm being honest. Like the more I'm watching these guys, and I haven't even watched the top. The more I'm watching these safeties, I'm like, yo, safety's kind of good this year. Like there's some flexible options here. There's some young guys in this class. I think safety's gonna be good this year. Big Malachi Moore guy. So yeah, that one you probably like that in the mock. All right, let's get into this. So I just want to hit on some of these assistants, and I want to start with the defensive side where I think all this ties together. So let me show you this quote, and we'll talk through it, and then I'll show the clip, and then we'll talk through it, and this thing will all make sense. Trust me, it'll be great. You'll be like, this is fantastic, best video I've ever watched in my life. Probably not, but maybe. Probably not. But I want to do that. So here, we'll start with this. So this is a quote from Aiden Hutchinson, and on the surface, I think this is like, okay. You know what I mean? Like that's the response, and that's fair. When most people read this, when I read it, I clicked the wrong thing again. I thought, okay, you know, like this isn't something to talk about. But when I start to connect the dots, you're like, oh, this is interesting. So Aiden Hutchinson says, I don't care who they bring in to coach us. Obviously, keeping Dan there is what we all want. But coordinators, position coaches, it don't matter. I don't know why I read it like that. It doesn't matter. As long as we have the right guys in the locker room and those foundation guys on offense, on defense, you can roll anyone out there to call the plays. Now, I stopped there because I'm sure that kind of just sounds like, oh, of course, you got good players. Yeah, you're going to be fine. But we all know coaching matters. And that's not the takeaway I wanted to walk away with, because I don't believe that. I don't believe you can just put anybody out there. Like you couldn't throw me out there with a Lions roster and I'd cook. I wouldn't cook. I'll be honest, I wouldn't cook. I'd get cooked. So this isn't true, right? But I don't say it's not true. But I think what he's saying is a different message. I think he's sending a different message. And I'm going to expand on that, but we'll start with the key part to this. He says keeping Dan Campbell is what we all want, which we know that's where it starts, right? We've talked about that. The coaching staff changes that he's been through, Campbell taking ownership and kind of finding the next offensive coordinator because he's the offensive side of the ball. We know Brad and Dan kind of tie into this, so we understand that's the thing. But the key is this. As long as we have the right guys in the locker room and those foundation guys on offense, defense, you can roll anyone out there to call plays. This is key for this reason. When we start to look at these assistant coaches that the Lions brought in, a lot of the identity is going to carry over. Now, I understand if we look at Kelvin Shepard, we expect that, right? So I know I did kind of the video on John Morton. Probably won't do that for Kelvin Shepard, just being honest, because I don't know like what it's going to look. I have no idea, but I'm assuming it's going to look very similar. I'm hoping maybe there's more emphasis on certain areas, but like I think it's going to look similar, and I think that's good. That's why they went that direction. But when you start to look at the assistant coaches, this all makes sense. So we've talked about this before, how the Lions schematically, Aaron Glenn has talked about this. He wants the players to have ownership on the field. It's about the players on the field, the ownership that they have on the field. He wants them to be able to make the adjustments on the field. He wants them to make calls on the field. And then we heard Alex Anzalone, who was on a podcast, I think he was on the St. Brown podcast, and he talked about how with Aaron Glenn, he essentially could like anticipate what Aaron Glenn was going to call based on the down, based on the distance, based on situation, based on what the offense rolls out in. And we hear those things, and it's like, okay, those two things tie together, right? I always bring up the example with Hudson, right? He spun inside, lost contained, they scored a touchdown. I think that was Dallas a couple years ago. And Aaron Glenn was like, yeah, we give those guys that, we give them that on the field. We give them that responsibility on the field because ultimately it's going to be player-led. And I think what Aiden Hutchinson's saying is directly to that. Like, this is going to be player-led. And when we go to this clip I'm about to show, it's going to make a ton of sense if you don't completely believe me now. But I think what Hutchinson's saying is because he knows what defense he was a part of. He was a part of a player-led defense that now the veterans of the defense are the young guys, right? All the rookies are the vets. It's Kirby Joseph. He's the communicator in the back end. It's going to go through their linebackers, right? Your green dot. Well, that's Jack Campbell, right? So or Alex Anzalone. Now your defense coordinator is the linebacker coach. So it's going to be through the players on the field, which are now the guys that have been in the system for the most part for years. They're the best players too. And then to wrap this thing up, I didn't even read the end of this. And before I go to the clip, at the end of the day, it's going to be the playmakers who are going to be making those plays on Sunday. That is true. As long as we keep our core group and everyone here, we're going to stay in this window of winning. I did like this little addition at the end because, again, I keep hearing about, like, the window. Dude, this is what the Lions are trying to avoid is a window. And I think they will continue to avoid that because they draft well. You continue to draft well, they're going to avoid a window. And as long as Dan continues to keep building good staffs with Brad, we're going to be fine. Real quick, Vincent says, bold statement, not just anyone, then what areas need to be addressed? Not just any areas need to be addressed. Okay, I don't know what you're referring to unless I missed a comment. Yep, that's Sauce. Back for another one. Okay, I don't know what you're referring to. Let me know what you're talking about. But okay, so there's that. Now I want to go to this clip. Let's get right to it. So this is Dave Aranda. All right, Dave Aranda. May sound familiar, maybe not. He was the LSU defensive coordinator in the 2019 championship run that they had. He is also now the head coach of Baylor. I actually have like a couple of like profile things we could dive into. But he's now the head coach of Baylor. I don't know why this isn't full screen. Wait, hold up. Make that full screen. Oh, okay, now it's full screen. But yeah, he was the head coach of Baylor. So the key to this is his time with LSU. The key is not him with Baylor. But this is a video from him with Baylor. I think it was when he first got there because he took over in 2020. The key is the assistant coach's connections to this guy because now it's going to start to all go together. And everything that we know about the Lions defense is going to sound the exact same of what we've heard from a schematic perspective and also from the perspective of understanding how the Lions go about business, specifically on the defensive side. Hutchinson knows the defensive side. He's on that side of the ball. This is what he knows in the NFL is what the Lions have done. And obviously Aaron Glenn has brought that ever since he's been here. So if we go to the coaching staff, two of the no coaches that I want to touch on is August Mangan. I think that's how you say his name. And also, who's the other one? August Mangan and Caleb Collins. Where's Caleb at? Caleb, where you at? Caleb's hiding? Okay. There he is, defensive assistant. So both these guys are brought in as defensive assistants. Now, we don't know exactly what their role is going to be, but we know they're both defensive assistants, right? Not positional coaches. Now, the background quickly, and then we'll kind of dive into this more, on both of these guys are overlap. The biggest thing we'll hit on here before we go to the video is that both these guys were on the same coaching staff back at LSU when Dave Aranda was the defensive coordinator. Now, a guy like August was there in 2020, the year after Miranda left. So he was there the next season. He carried over. But both of these guys have overlap from that same defensive style. Okay, so we know that both these guys were plucked from the same kind of tree. Now, when we'll revisit them and what their impact's going to be, and I'll show some clips. But when you go to this clip about Dave Aranda and how he approaches the defensive side of the ball, when you listen to him speak, and it's a 3-minute video, and give me a 1 in the chat once I start playing this if y'all can hear it. If not, I may just play it through my microphone just to make sure it works. But it should work. This is what he says, and I just want to hit on some of the key points of what he says here because it's going to tie together. It's going to tie together everything we're saying. So let me make sure it's playing. Let me turn down the beat too. Turn down the beat. I don't think there's sound on my end. Hold up. Let me turn down this beat. This beat is so loud. I can't hear nothing either. So if y'all can't hear nothing, that's why. Okay, there we go. All right, that's not doing its thing anymore. Okay, I got to switch my speakers to this. Okay. Oh, y'all can even see that. It's kind of weird. All right, here we go. So give me a 1 if y'all can hear this. And then we'll get to it. Zero? All right, we're going to have to play it out loud. That's fine. I'll play it out loud. It's all good. Shout the streamer. All right. Well, we tried. I tried. Look, y'all can't say I didn't try. I tried. All right, we did what we did. All right, we're going to play it out loud. We'll play it out loud so I can hear it. And it'll just run through the headset. But we need to hear this because it's going to make it all make sense. Okay, here we go. This should... Now we're choppy. All right, hold up. I got to refresh. All right, hold up. I got to refresh. We'll be back. Give me. Honestly, I think I may have fixed it. You know what I mean? Like, I think refreshing that may have actually fixed it, which actually could be better because it might sound better here. And if we can't do the sound, I got the keynotes, so I'll just do that. Dude, the mic just decides to quit. I'm telling you. Oh, wait, no. I probably made it worse now. Hold up. I probably didn't fix it. I don't think I fixed it. I think if I push the speaker again, it's not going to work. All right, I'm going to play. Give me a 1 if y'all can hear it.
Selection, not compression. What we're saying there is that you don't want to have a bunch of things, right? And put them all together. Check the cover.
I think it just wants more beats. It's probably facts. Is it quiet though? Like, can you actually hear it or no? Because like this is the only other option outside of me plugging it back in, and then which I can. You know what? We're here. I'm gonna do it real quick. Don't even worry about it. I'm gonna do it, and we're gonna see what happens. Let me know if I become choppy. You know what I'm saying? My man named Easy. Hold up, this ain't Easy. Okay, Easy E. Easy E. I see you. What's up, Easy E? All right. Let's try it one more time. So I'm gonna switch. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make it work. I may have to refresh again though. So just let me know. Y'all just let me know if I need to refresh again, and we're gonna get this wrong. This is important, man. Okay, we're gonna try it again. Oh, actually, I can check on my end too. Here we go. Y'all can hear this? I'm not even showing it. I'm not even showing it. I'm like, can y'all hear this? I'm not even showing it on the screen. This is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, now it's play. All right, look, we got it now. Just let me know, and then we go into keynotes. Let me know. I wasn't even sharing it, dog. Is silence? All right. Okay. This thing's trash, dog. All right. Don't know why I didn't go live on OBS again. My fault. Here's the key. All right. And I can just show the screen because we don't need to even talk about what he's saying. Don't even worry about it. We'll just show what he's saying. I wish I could play this, but I can't. Now I hear myself yelling in my own ear. Great. Okay. So here's the key to the Patriots. Colby, you're having to visualize what's happening right now. This is a disaster. This is. Oh, y'all, you could hear it though? Like there was sound? That's a step. I don't know what's going on. All right, here's the key to this, okay? Here's what he's saying, because now I feel like I've lost the whole conversation, but we're good. So he speaks on about 3 key points here, but the 3 key points are incredibly important, okay? I think we tie this together. So he speaks on selection, not compression. And he explains this by the point that I just made about the Lions coaching staff specifically, which is essentially the players on the field having that responsibility. They're going to be the guys making the calls, and it's not going to be a check with me system, which a check with me system, basically, the way I understand it, always you check with the sideline as you get out on the field. So the front shows something. The offense, in this case, he's talking about defense. So offense goes into certain formation, right? It could be down a distance, but they go in a certain formation. They align a certain way. Tight ends in this spot. How does the defense align to match that? So that would be a check with me. You get out there, you see what they're in, you look to the sideline, he gives the call, bam, you go to that look defensively. He doesn't want it to be that style. He wants it to be selection, not compression, meaning that the players can anticipate what the play is going to get to because it's something that they run all the time based on whatever the look is offensively. So if they're getting to this package offensively, if this is the personnel that they have and this is the way that they align, this is what we expect of those plays. So now we call this defensively. So now it's less on the coach. It's not as much from the sideline. It's more through the players that are out there. That's exactly what the Lions have been, which leads to some good and bad, especially when you have youthful, new players in there. You get some messiness. That was the first key. So that ties in perfectly. The second thing, I appreciate you. You doing homework? I got it. The second thing was change the math. There's 3 things. The second thing he hit on was change the math. And he spoke on this really through the idea of changing the math post-snap versus what it looks like pre-snap. So if they feel like I have numbers pre-snap, it changes post-snap. Now, the most simplified way I think we can go to this is like if we're talking about disguising coverage. You got one coverage look defensively, right? They have one kind of look defensively pre-snap. They're showing one kind of umbrella defensively, and then they get into something else, right? So there's a different coverage pre-snap versus post-snap. And the Lions do that, and we're going to show some clips. These teams did that a ton, okay? So there's a lot of that movement that did take place, and that'll carry over. But the third one is, to me, the most important. And I'm glad Patriots Global's here to listen to this because I know he really cares. This is no, but for real, this third one is all about selection, not compression. That's the key. Everybody write it down. Write it down, Keith. Put it on their homework. Keith, this is what's important, okay? I'm actually proud of you, man. How you doing homework listening to this? I'd be lost. I'm lost a little bit. The third key is the most important. Shrink the run area. Now, we can look at this, and he explains it for like a few seconds if you want to watch the video, because for some reason the sound doesn't play. He doesn't speak a lot about this one, but the key that he hits on is umbrella. And what he means by umbrella is the gap and a half idea, which is something the Lions have implemented the last couple of years. It's something that we pointed out over here. It goes back to when it was weird because it was when I was trying to compare the Lions to the Bengals. That was before we had DJ Reader. It was years ago with Rad. And I was like, what if we did like this gap and a half style to kind of minimize the quarterback run, right? Take up more gaps, that kind of thing. And that's something that he specifically talked about Dave Aranda's defense doing. So again, these 2 coaches were under Dave Aranda. They both came from the same spot. It's the one overlap we have, and they're both now here. So now he's talking about this umbrella style, which he explains as a gap and a half style, which is you have a primary and a secondary, as we know. So defense lineman has an A, presses into the opposite A, or he presses into the B. That's the same look as what the Lions have done. So that's similar. They're coming from the exact same tree. And then we can even look at it from personnel. Length on the inside, or lift on the inside, length on the outside. I mean, if you want to just see, if you were trying to guess what kind of D lineman lines would go after, they've always valued length. Think about Lake on the edge. That's where, when Marcus Davenport was brought up, I'm like, well, let's not forget, like he was a long edge defender. They always love having that length on the outside, and then lift on the inside. Big bodies that can play a gap and a half style. You got to have the size that can do that can press into opposite gaps, that can create lift on the inside. So the 3 key points that he hits on there, all are things that the Lions have been schematically defensively over the last few years. Now, when you go to these two coaches that have the exact same overlap that were both under him, so for example, and it's weird because August Mangan, who is a defensive assistant now for the Lions, his background isn't heavy defense. I was like, why did we hire this guy as in the defensive? That was my thought process. I was like, I don't even understand this. His most recent background was game management, essentially game management for San Fran. He picked it up in 2022, as well as also being a special teams quality control coach, which is where he originally started. But there's another overlap with August and the Lions. In 2022, he was the special teams coordinator at the Senior Bowl, which, as we know at that time, Senior Bowl was always kind of the overlap, right? The Senior Bowl was like where you have guys that can elevate up, they get into a higher role, and they get a chance to kind of prove themselves. In 2022, the Lions coaching staff was at the Senior Bowl. In 2020, so he went from San Fran. He got the invite to the Senior Bowl to coach. In 2022, the Lions coaching staff ran a Senior Bowl. So it was Aubrey Pleasant at defensive coordinator. It was Ben Johnson at offensive coordinator before he became the offensive coordinator. At that time, there was discussion. And then who was head coach? I think it was Deuce Staley was head coach. So the Lions coaching staff was also there the time that he was there working as a special teams coordinator. So maybe they, found a connection with him there. So the overlap's there, the connection's there, the schematic similarities are there. But he worked with special teams. So I'm trying to find, is there some special teams the Lions want to get? Maybe Jake Bates had a good season last year. Didn't really notice kickoff anything different. Their kickoffs, they weren't very good at it either. I'm like, well, maybe they want us to get better at kickoffs because we were pretty terrible at doing that outside just giving teams touchbacks. But I don't think that's going to change because San Fran didn't really have that. There is the Ronnie Bell overlap, so maybe he gets some opportunity. I doubt it because he didn't do much with San Fran. But he also working with them. So he works with LSU for a couple seasons after being with Alabama for a year. And then he goes to the special team side of the ball. But it's those 2 years because in 2019, and here's why I think it's important. In 2019 with LSU, he's working defensively with that team. He became the defensive analyst. He's working there on a team that was the 5th best in the country at getting off the field on third down. What we know about the Lions they were great situationally last season. Well, I think about a new defensive coordinator, and I think back to when Aaron Glenn started here. The Lions, where they went young, was defensive coordinator with Glenn. Now, it worked out. It took time, but they also brought in Dom Capers at the time, right? Dom Capers was overlooking everything. He was the veteran in the building that the Lions didn't have at that time. And at this point, we have a lot of young guys on the coaching staff, but a lot of guys have been here. They understand what it's going to look like. The core guys do, but we still have vets like Jim O'Neill, who's now the safeties coach as well, defensive assistant, been a defensive coordinator. So we have those guys, but now you get a potential game management piece defensively, which would make a ton of sense that he's now a defensive assistant, not working special teams, because you could have a guy that now has control over everything defensively that game management wise may need a little bit of help of a guy that's been a part of that. So now you get schematic similarities. And then you go to Caleb Collins, and Caleb Collins is also a defensive assistant. He worked with linebackers, and here's where I'm going to show some clips because I want to make sure I have the clips uploaded here. Him working with linebackers over the last few seasons. Specifically, he worked with Baylor most recently, and now we do have David Correa, who's still our outside linebackers coach, so we don't necessarily need that, but you do think about Sean Deion Hamilton is now the official linebacker coach for the Lions, which will be his first time. So there is a little bit of okay, there's some newness there. He was the assistant at the time. Now he's the full linebacker coach. And then there's also I want to make sure I got this right. So he was with them, and then he was also, again, with LSU. And at the time he was with LSU, he was working with the linebackers. And when I start to show some of these clips of the LSU linebackers, you think about, dude, they had dogs. Caleb Von Chasen was there at the time. They had, who's, by the way, is a free agent. That was one of the trade deadline targets that I had. He is a free agent this offseason. Just throw it out there. He had a pretty good year, basically making nothing. They also had, Patrick Queen at the time. They got a great play out of the linebacker. The defense was fantastic. But I think that overlap of the same vision of how they want to do things defensively, not check with me, not run through the coaches, but run through the players on the field, is going to overlap into why they brought these two guys in. And then I think situationally, both of them make a ton of sense. Add a guy that's helped with linebackers in the past to a new linebacker coach that hasn't been that before. He was an assistant for a few years in Sean Deion Hamilton, and now Kelvin's out of that role, and add a guy that can help with game management. Now, I'm going to go to the clips here, but I also want to talk about a few of the offensive assistants as well. Sheldon Rankins free. I know, honestly, it didn't really move the needle for me when I saw that. At first, I was like, oh, Sheldon Rankins. But the more I thought about it, I was like, Sheldon came off a pretty rough season, and they already let him go. They saved a lot of cap space. I don't think I'm huge on the Sheldon Rankins idea, but we could use it, especially early in the season. If there is a time to do it, it'd be now, because he'll probably drop a lot of his asking price. I'm assuming Sheldon's value just went like this. So if there's a time to do it, now would be the time to jump on it for potentially nothing. But if it's anything like 5+, I don't think the Lions would do it. But this could be the time to get him very cheap. That's the one thing. He's not coming off a good year at all, but this would be the time to just depth. And this is the time to jump on it. The defense had to be fine. The defense was good that year. It is very good. But I want to show some clips from that defense because I think it's about what it looked like, which stood out to me. So let me go pull up the clips, and then we'll go to the offensive side for a second. Speaking of special teams, MB coming back, or are we good with Bates and Fox? Michael Badgley? I don't think so. I'd be surprised if they brought Badgley back. I'd be surprised. I think they're good with Bates. He's 27 of 30 this past season, so he was awesome. I would be surprised if I guess maybe not for competition, but like as someone that like legitimately could take the role, I'd be shocked. I do think that it would be cool to see the Lions get better at how they kick the ball off to make it more impactful than what it was, because that wasn't super impactful. They usually just kick touchbacks, and it didn't really lead to anything. And remember, at the beginning of the year, we were just kicking the ball short, and it was like, all right, this is a mess. So we just stopped doing it. Now I want to show some of these LSU plays. So this was 2019. Now they ran a 3-4, 3-3-5 most times sitting in nickel, but they ran a different style defense. But you could see the size on the inside for their lip. They could see the length on the outside with their DNs. And then also we saw Caleb Von Chasen, who, I think about this draft. There's multiple guys that could fit this role. That could be Derek Barnes. Regardless of how they do it, I'd love to see Lions get a new piece here. I'd love to see them bring back Barnes, that kind of thing. And then obviously they had Patrick Queen. They had the other linebacker who's pretty good too. I can't think of dude's name, but they had great linebackers. And then when you look at some of these plays, like a lot of these kind of are, reminiscent. Now, again, this is why it'd be nice to have a guy that brings a little more pass rush juice, because playing this outside backer position, we don't get a ton of this from Derek Barnes specifically, right? We don't get a ton of that. And then against run defense, we see that gap and a half style. We see pressing in opposite gaps. We see size. We see a true nose tackle that they utilize. Lions did this last year. Aleem McNeil would kind of go to DN. Nose tackle would be, DJ Reader last season. And then Levi, having the flexibility, could also play that role just like Aleem on the opposite side. So they were able to kind of lean it. They didn't do it all the time, but they were able to get to that. Now, I do think there will be changes in how they do things up front exactly, just to our personnel, but then also to the flip side, not only to our personnel, but also based on having Casey Rogers. But Casey Rogers' similarities that will favor, I think, some of these coaches is, one, the amount of blitzing they did. There was a ton of blitzing. Two, the amount of secondary movement that happened post snaps. Those were the two keys that stuck out to me that Rodgers was a part of. Now, he's the defensive line coach, but those were two things that stuck out to me. So here you get more of that kind of straightforward 3-4 front that we get from this defense. We get that gap and a half style from their defensive linemen, just like this. And then they have the little outside linebacker rush passer. And then you see all the movement. Heavy blitzing team, which could lead to disaster, but blitzing slots, aggressive safety play, single high looks, a lot of cover 3 blitzing. A lot of that happened defensively. So I think that those two things carry over, and we're going to go to the offense. You can see it again here. Now, hey, sometimes not good, and look, we used to get killed by this too. This dang RPO whack stuff, bro. They used to cook us. But I think that the carryover makes a ton of sense. Now, the opposite side of the ball, I want to go to the opposite side of the ball and quickly touch on the offensive mind. Hit that like button. Let's get Dion out there. Should be watching more. Hey, I appreciate you, Easy. Easy, I see you. I appreciate you, man. At the end of the day, Lions win if the D-line ain't in the hospital. Well, I'm with you on that one, man. Chasing it, dude, just saying it. Hey, he was good last year, okay? He was pretty good last year. Caleb Vaughn did some work last year. Don't do him like that. He did pretty good last year, okay? And he's only making $1 million. Like, let's be, Nick, I can't say dudes. Oh, my man Mike's in the building. He shot the Mike. I see you, Mike. Mike, it's good to see you, man. It's been too long. Hopefully everything's going well, man. No, this is the time, man. We love the offseason. I love the offseason. I think we all do. Nick. I can't say dude's last name. He's another guy I really do like for the exact same reason with Iffy. Like him a lot. Almost had him in my mock draft as well. I like both of these guys. Nick, I could have a breakdown video of right now. I've watched enough of him to do that. I've even put some grades on some of his stuff. But, yeah, I like Nick a lot, too. Now, if we flip it to the other side of the ball, and this will be a little bit quicker with some of these coaching changes. There's 2 key changes here. There's 2 key changes. The first one, let me pull up the staff. You have to have good corners for that. And we do. We have good corners. All right, that's why Carlton's coming back. Okay, that's why we're gonna get that deal done. I agree, though. We gotta get that done. Or DJ Reed slides over, whichever one they want to do. The other key coaching staff hiring that I wanted to hit on here on the offense side of the ball, 2 more assistants. And I'm focused on the assistants because nobody talks about them. You know what I mean? We're not gonna be talking about these guys. We got to give these guys some attention because who knows? Maybe 2 years from now, it's our new offense coordinator. That's how these things go, man. John Morton became the OC, so these things matter. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it does. But the 2 I want to hit on here, first off, is the tight end coach. So Lions have a new tight end coach, Tyler Rowell. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. Tyler Rowell, who's now our new tight end coach. The key really to this one is kind of straightforward. We won't spend much time here. But he worked with North Dakota State. He also played fullback. In the John Morton video, I think fullback's coming back for the Lions this year. I just think it's going to happen. And if you look at his background playing fullback, the development of fullback, coaching fullbacks for years, I think that fullback's going to be a thing again for the Lions this season. So there's that. Also, Seth Ryan is now the Lions' assistant tight end coach, which is interesting because he was the assistant wide receiver coach. He played wide receiver at Clemson, didn't have a lot of experience before he became our assistant wide receiver coach. So him being him coming in as our tight ends coach is replacing Steve Hyden. And if you remember Steve Hyden's background was heavy offensive line. And what I think we can easily take away from last year was that Steve Hyden worked with the tight ends. The tight ends were a lot better blocking. Sam Laporta was awesome as a blocker last year. Brock Wright was great as a blocker. So we saw that impact kind of rub off. Now this year, I think even if you don't have a fullback, Brock Wright playing more fullback, maybe it's Malcolm, anybody in that tight end room, the H-back, those kind of guys that could be more utilized in that sense this year, once again, I think the Lions are going to add a third tight end this offseason. This is why I think this is important. Look, he's been a part of, they put many guys in the NFL, a lot of them undrafted. Most notable, Hunter Lepke a few years ago. I think he went to Dallas. I think that's where he went. They had Noah Gindorf, I think was his name. He was another guy that I think had some buzz. I don't think he got drafted, though. Put out multiple tight ends, fullbacks that he was a part of, tight end / fullbacks working with North Dakota State. So he's the first one. And then the second one, which is the one I really want to focus on, is a guy that was an offensive coordinator. He's an offensive assistant now. Marquez Tuiasopopo. I don't know. This guy, though, he's now an offensive assistant. So he was an offensive coordinator for a few years with Rice before he got here. He also played the quarterback position. The key to this, one, I keep going back to how stylistically a lot of these things feel similar. So I did the David Shaw video, and we may have to revisit that. David Shaw was a part of offensive and coached quarterbacks. Kevin Hogan, he coached pocket-style quarterbacks, right? That's who he constantly worked with, right? So you think about all the quarterbacks that he worked with over time, majority were like that. And you get to a guy like Marquez here, he did the exact same thing with Rice. If I just go through some of the recent quarterbacks, and he's worked with some big, hey, I was pretty good, Spencer. I mean, that might have been right. I don't know. We can ask him. JT Daniels, pocket quarterback. Remember JT Daniels? Dude played at Georgia. Went to Rice for a year, tried to have his breakout season, had his best statistical season there. Kind of makes sense, but he did. He went there, so I guess it means something. 63% of his passes, I think that was the best. 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. E.J. Warren, that was the son of Kurt Warner. E.J. Warner, who is the son of Kurt Warner, also played for Rice for a season, and I think that was his last year. Now, he didn't have his best statistical season, but you're going to see him in this clip, E.J. Warner playing quarterback. They missed some time with some injury. And if you go back to I think it says even more, when you go back to who he coached before that. So he was with UCLA and Cal, did not coach Jared Goff, but he was there right after. So he worked with Chase Garbers. If you remember Chase Garbers, I remember Chase Garbers coming out, went to the Raiders, undrafted, now in the UFL. He was a pocket-style quarterback, so they went with Garbers. They kind of stuck to the same identity there. And then you go to Josh Rosen, who's probably the most notable quarterback when he was a quarterback's coach with UCLA. Josh Rosen, pocket quarterback, obviously didn't work. There were some leadership things, those kind of things that popped up. But stylistically, they all kind of made the same sense. Everybody kind of fits to the same tree. So now you get to some of these plays, and I think there's just a few little nuggets I can take away from seeing this. Obviously, production-wise, he did a really good job. I mean, the numbers all kind of speak for themselves. Like, for example, with Rice in 2021 and 2024, that was his last season there. They went from a team that was 108th in the country in scoring to the next season at 25 points, a 4-point jump, which was 84th. The next season, it was just about 30 points a game, which was 56th. The last year, it took a drop back at 22 points per game at 112 again. We know how much of its personnel change, but pretty much an upward trajectory, and he set some records with Rice, meaning they had the fourth most passing yards per game in history in 2023, I believe it was, fourth most in history for their school. 3 of their top 10 passing yard seasons also came with him as the offensive coordinator for Rice, and they had the third most completions in school history. I believe it was in 2024. And if you watch this Rice offense, just from a little that I've seen, I need to watch more, it is a very heavy passing offense. There wasn't much of a run element at all. It was like everything feels like they're throwing the football. So he's probably going to be working with the passing attack. That would be my guess. Now, from a run perspective, a lot of it felt like wide zone schemes, so maybe some of that carries over, and it would make sense here because, again, similarities. That's exactly what John Morton has done for years, is a lot of wide rushing attacks. So they would make sense. But from a passing perspective, a couple of these little things did stand out. So, like, first thing that stood out, a lot of shot plays on early downs, which, again, I think vertical shots are going to become more of a emphasis this season. That's just my guess. I think we're going to see a lot more vertical shots. RPO, didn't have much of a run game, but everything was attached to the run game. They still didn't take away the run game. Even though they didn't have one, everything was attached to it. So things like this, just like David Shaw did for years with Stanford, this is this kind of thing that we may not see direct RPOs, but everything is still going to be attached to what the run game is. That identity of who the Lions are going to be will be the same. And another guy here carries over that same identity for them. You can see it set up just like that. The next play, and this one isn't anything crazy, but the motion. They utilized a lot of motion on the backfield. And what I took away, here's going to be a running back screen. We literally run the exact same screen setup. Like, this is like the Lions' go-to running back screen. It's like run the little angle route and then flip it to him. This is the Lions. We've seen a lot of screens. They look exactly like this. Not sure why this one looks like this, but okay, here we are. But yeah, I think this is the last one. Okay, it's fine. Some of them cut off, but again, this was another RPO look. There's a shot play on this play. They end up getting to the end zone. This is why I think vertical, wide, one-on-one receivers on the outside that can kind of win is what it's going to be a little bit valued this year, whether that's Patrick or potentially getting somebody else. I think that's going to be utilized. Not a ton, but I think it's going to be utilized within this offense, potentially a little bit more. So the big takeaways for me there, it was a very heavy passing offense, but it felt like it was not the most difficult for the quarterback to decipher, right? It was a lot, like they did some 4x1 sets where they'd do literally the same, I wish I would have put it in here, the same things they did with John Morton, where they'd run a screen on one side and they go one-on-one receiver on the other side. And depending on what the coverage looked like, you would just pick a side and go that way. You either throw the one-on-one back shoulder, which we used to do with DJ Chark and those guys, or you throw the running back screen. We literally ran the exact same thing with Morton. So that was like, yeah, this is the exact same page that they've taken and they use. We haven't done that a ton since then. So there's that aspect of the offense. There's the shot plays, which were a huge aspect of the offense, typically off of some RPO look, typically off of some play action, which the Lions are probably also going to carry over. But so much of what they did was through the passing attack. But I thought that it was an aggressive style, and you saw the interceptions, but so much of it was pass heavy offensively that you understand why the interceptions were there. But it didn't feel like it was super difficult for the quarterback to kind of decipher where to go. And a lot of times, I noticed this with John Morton's offenses. I noticed this with Marquez's offenses. These quarterbacks felt comfortable when things broke down, where they had to get on the play. They didn't feel like there was a lot of intermediate shots from what I had seen here, but they felt very comfortable outside the pocket because I don't think it was the most difficult thing for a quarterback to pick up. I think if anything, it kind of simplified what it's going to look like for the quarterback. So I think he's going to be a part of that. I think the styles all kind of translate over. And I think that both of these coaches, they just fit. I think that's the theme that I walked away from when I look at all these coaching staff changes is like every coach may not have the biggest name or the biggest resume and we'll have to see how it's going to pan out, but every coach fits the same idea of how they want things to roll. Every coach is under the same tree. They're coming from the same place, the same schematic idea of how they're going to do things, the same idea of how they want it to look offensively and defensively. And, we talked about a few of these guys specifically, like Jim O'Neill's still here, right? He'll be kind of the vet in the room. We did a little thing on Casey Rogers. We definitely got to do I think we got to do another video on Casey Rogers. DeShea stays, but it's the assistants that are coming in that I think is the key to everything because they all fit the same outlook. And maybe this is how it was in the past too. I don't remember exactly, but maybe it was. I honestly just don't remember. Maybe we didn't dive into it enough then. But we used to have coaching staff changes. I think that's kind of the Lions were trying to figure out who they wanted to be and what they wanted to look like. And now I think they have a pretty clear picture of what they want it to look like. And it's just about getting the guys that are going to make it look like that. And look, I think these coaching staffs, man, or these coaching staff guys that we brought in, I think both of them, like on the defense side specifically, Caleb Collins, the linebackers that he had worked with, because he was an outside linebacker coach and an inside linebacker coach, which again is great because that means he was working with, the Caleb-ons who would step on the line, but he was specifically like when he was working with the outside linebackers, I think that was with Baylor. Yeah, he went with Baylor, so he was also still with the same defensive coach. So obviously Dave Aranda was like, yeah, that guy does what I want to do. He's gonna follow me over here from LSU. So he got to work with guys on the ball there. Then he also worked with inside linebackers before that with LSU, guys like Devin White, guys like Patrick Queen, guys like Jacob Phillips. These were fantastic linebackers in college. A couple of them were great in the NFL, just like Patrick Queen, but these are guys that fly around. Like we know what this is. And if you watch the LSU, there's a lot of blitzing. If one thing I think is going to definitely carry over with the Calvin Shepard defense, you're going to see a lot of blitzing from the second level. And I don't think we have an elite blitzing linebacker. I think Jack got better last year as the year went on. I think Malcolm's maybe our best. Barnes can obviously do it but I don't really want to count Barnes. I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. And I do think there's multiple players in this draft, first round, second round, wherever you want to go, that have the same kind of build that can potentially get after the quarterback in this draft, that could play on the ball, that kind of thing. I think there's a lot of guys that fit that. So I think the Lions will address that somewhere, even if they bring back Derek Barnes. I think it's super interesting. But I think, Caleb Collins makes a ton of sense who he's worked with. But I think the August one, man, was the most interesting because he's got such a goofy, weird path and working with special teams. I mean, Northwestern State, the guy played, but he only played mainly on special teams from what I was able to gather. So, like, he's going to be locked into that, but he's a defensive assistant, which told me that the clock management or game management, like situationally, what are we doing? Because that's, usually they say go on to the on-field coaching. That's kind of the next step. My guess is that's where he's going to be involved. Situationally, decisions, how it's going to play out on those big situational downs, because that's always the key is can we get off the field on third down? I think losing a guy in Aaron Glenn who over years developed that. Remember, it wasn't always great. We were great this year, but I mean, at times I don't think we were great. But obviously Washington, because it was 4th and 2 all the time. But like, I remember Seattle when they were just like pop touchdown run. I mean, they popped back-to-back touchdown runs on like third down. It's like, what are we doing? We show them the same look twice. That's the kind of thing that you think of a new defensive coordinator like that could be a problem. Those kind of things where it's like, all right, situationally, probably not the best decision here. Okay, this is probably not great. But if you also get a guy that's under the same mindset of how they play defensively, I think those things mesh better. And I think it's clear why they brought in a guy like this, because they didn't go with a Dom Capers route. Let's get the vet that's, been there, done that. Like, they went with young guys still, but guy that's specifically focused in that. And they have overlap with him multiple times, overlap in coaching trees. So I think this coaching staff is pretty fun. And I trust it because Dan's done a great job here. But I think just how they've lined this thing up, man, I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be really good for us. But anyways, I'll leave that there. Let me see what the chat's saying, and we'll probably wrap this thing pretty soon. Evening dose and chat. My man D-Map's in the building. I see you, D-Map. Hey, I appreciate you being here, D-Map. Anyone watching Canada versus USA hockey tonight? I am not. I'm watching Michigan State. It's about to start. You know what I mean? I'm watching that. What time is it, though? Is it like a late thing? I saw they fought like over and over. They just fought. Bro, that was a boxing match, dog, if I'm being real. That wasn't even hockey. That's crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy that hockey is like, it's awesome, but it's kind of like, how does this a thing? Like, you know what I mean? Last night, Canada won. I did honestly, I did keep up with the score on ESPN because I saw it went to like overtime, and then I woke up, so they lost. But like, the fact that hockey is played like it is in 2025 is crazy. I'm glad it is. I'm not like hating. I'm not upset about it, but it's just wild. Like, all the changes to the NFL. And hockey's like, all right, they start fighting, let's let it run. And it's like, it's just part of the game. I guess it's just part of the game. Unless they hit the ground, they're just fighting. It's like, this is crazy. This is crazy. 2025, you can't sack a quarterback, but you can fight 4 times in hockey. Like, we cool with that. It's crazy. It's crazy, bro. I don't know why that's a thing. But also, the salary cap is expected to jump. That's why I have to do another mock off season. It's not going to change a ton here, but it's expected to jump out $30 million. And I think the biggest key to that, side note, is what that's going to do for future years. Because as long as the anticipation is that number keeps going up, the way we continue to structure contracts shouldn't change. The big thing is that number is big enough. Like I said, I'm not really worried about the Lions' financial ability this year. It's more about future years. So I don't think it's that impactful for the Lions. But if it does get high enough, the flexibility could definitely be there for this year to potentially help yourself in future years. Like, however, like, let's say you wanted to bring Za'Darius back. If you structured a deal that fits Za'Darius a little bit better, you could potentially make this cap hit just higher this season if that number got high enough and really take away a lot of the stress of the dead money next year you had to just deal with. That's where I think it could be beneficial. Obviously, 1-year deals as well, but more so just alleviating what the Lions have to deal with next year when they have all these dead cap hits and they have all of their core pieces and their numbers are going to skyrocket. I think that's where the salary cap changes are the most important. Because I think the Lions are going to be fine financially. Like, if they just, they have, top 5 cap space in the NFC they're set to have this year. They're going to be fine this year. The key is 2026, where that's not much money. And outside of restructuring a lot of deals to lock everybody in, which pushes money down the road, and it just sets it up differently. But the key there is you're locking guys in. You may have more flexibility to take more on the front end than what typically looks like if that number gets high enough this year. But I heard it's going to jump like 30 million or something, which is crazy. But I'm sure they have projection on what it's going to keep going to. I read a thing today that they said like no games next year are going to be on national television. I'm like, what? No games on national television? Like, they're all like, they're going to be on national television, but they're also going to be on like a streaming service, which is crazy for numbers. They're adding games in different countries. Like, that's going to shoot numbers up as well, I would assume. Like, I don't think the numbers are going anywhere. I think they're just continuing to go up, which is pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. I know I missed a lot of comments here. Daniel's retired to multiple concussions. Daniels, you gonna play Phantoms Beat? See, look, I want to do Phantoms Beat. I do want to do Phantoms Beat. I don't want to do it in like a a stream where I can't give it attention. Like, unless he just wants me to run it in the back, I can just put it in the background on one of our streams. I want to do it like in a stream where I can like give it some attention, some focus. I'm thinking maybe one of our free agent streams where I can kind of like, while nothing's happening, give some attention to the beat rather than something where I'm not like paying attention to it at all. That's why I didn't do it here today. But if he just wants to run in the background, I mean, I can always do that. But I wanted to like be able to kind of go in and out of it. See how Shep runs the defense. Last night, Canada won. Be getting cornerback soon. I got to do some cornerback ones. Yeah, I got to do some cornerback ones. It's hard, man. It's hard, man, to put the videos out too. Like, it's kind of a balance right now. There's players I got to catch up on. Tomorrow's going to be a guy. If it drops tomorrow, which is the plan, you're going to love it. Y'all are going to love it. You guys have been asking for this player, so it's coming. All right, it's going to happen. But I know I got to get to that soon. So do you see us making a splash this offseason? I doubt it. No, I'm gonna be honest. I don't. Like, I don't think the Lions are gonna make a splash. I just don't. I don't see how it works. Like, the only thing I could think of for the Myles Garrett one was like he would just have to truly not be looking to get paid. Like not get paid, but like he would have to truly be like, I just want to play for a winner, and he would have to be willing to structure his contract truly like that. And I just don't see that happening. I think he's going to get traded to a team that's pretty good, and I think that team is going to pay him the highest paid defensive end. Just using him for an example. I don't think the Lions are going to make a significant trade. I don't think they necessarily should. I don't think they should do something like that. I think if Garrett was like, yo, I'll take a lot less. I'm really just trying to play for a winner. I don't need all those guarantees. You can get on my deal after 2 years. Let's run it. Then all of a sudden it's like, all right, we can make this work in the front end. We'll just have to restructure some deals and we'll get out of your contract though. But this is going to be kind of like a rental here. I'm with that. My thing is the fastest way for the Lions to lose their window for Super Bowl, the fastest way is you do something like that and dude gets hurt. And it's not like I'm basing that on anything. You don't know. The guy hasn't had that issue. But it's the sport, things happen. And the problem is, as soon as you give Mike Miles the highest paid DN and you do it with Hutch and you're just trying to kind of finagle your way through the cap situation, you're trying to be like, let's restructure this guy and this guy, let's make it work, let's make it fit, and you're like really rocking a tightrope there because you're still paying Goff. As soon as you do that, like if we had it, if you had a free quarterback, yeah, this would be easier. But you don't have that option. Like you can't just be like, I'm going to Hooker. Like that, to me, that just ruins the quarterback window. Like we don't know what that would be. So that's the fastest way for the Lions to be like, oh, snap, we're kind of in trouble here. Because they'll lose so much flexibility, especially if they're still good, but they're not garbage. They're going to lose so much flexibility. If it would work, but the risk of potentially dude gets hurt and all of a sudden we got this money locked up and there's not an obvious, like, we can just get out of the deal and move on. To me, that's just too risky. Like I think from Brad's perspective, that's the fastest way for the window to close. Because we get in a spot where that happens, and now you've paid Hutch because they're not going to not pay Hutchinson. I would say the most interesting conversation is one that y'all brought up to me that I haven't truly considered that much, but I think it's going to be the most interesting. Is going to be Jameson Williams in this year to next year. To me, that's going to be the most interesting combo because he obviously played a lot better. If he continues on that trajectory, which I think he may with John Morton this next year, even be better, more production. That to me is the interesting combo is like, do the Lions try to actually give him a massive deal? What is he going to be looking for? I'm sure he's going to want to get paid too. And the wide receiver market is exploding. And I think with how many guys are constantly drafted, even in bad receiver years like this year, we might get 4 receivers in the first round, maybe 5. Second round will kind of dip off, but there might be 5. There could be 5 receivers in the first round, probably 4. It's like there's still a large amount of receivers that are constantly going to get drafted. These are going to be the most interesting. Like, do the Lions say we're just going to shell that money out, or they're like, we're not giving you that. We're not doing that. We're going to just reset it. That to me is more interesting, and I think for how the Lions are built, they could actually have that conversation. Y'all think the Bengals would want to trade for Hendrickson? I think I've heard it. I mean, I've heard the name everywhere that Hendrickson could be on the block, and again, that's one that like I think could make more sense. I just still feel I think that one could make more sense. To me, it's just the financial. I don't think the Lions are going to be locked up. I don't think it's a necessary move. Like, say the Lions came in next year without Hutchinson. It was like, all right, what are we going to do? It's like, yeah, we should probably go add somebody. But, like, to me, I honestly don't think they need it. Like, and I'm not saying don't address D-line. I think they should address D-line. But I don't think they need to do that. I don't think trading for Myles Garrett would guarantee them a Super Bowl. Like, I want to believe it would, but I don't think it would. And I think we could have a healthy Myles Garrett. If you told me he was healthy through the Super Bowl, I don't think that would guarantee we're winning the Super Bowl. Like, I think it would still be like, all right, there's still got to be other things because guys are going to get hurt. Not even saying him. But I don't think it's worth the risk in a lot of ways just because I expect he's going to get paid a lot. I think Hendrickson makes more sense because even if he got a new deal, it wouldn't be the same. It's going to be a ton though. But I don't think you'd actually have to give him a new deal right away, which is the biggest, the most significant difference, right? You could probably just rock on his deal, and to me that would make it more realistic, right? You could just like you can't. I don't think Garrett's not going to play on whatever the heck he's making when he gets traded. Trey Hendrickson could, right? Because yeah, so it's 18.5 million. So like that, you could do that. You could do that, and that would be a true rental. Like if you gave up a second round pick for Hendrickson, which we do have. We have a second round pick. Yeah. Yeah, we do. It's at the very end. Like if pick 60 brought Trey Hendrickson, you could make a case that makes sense. I think that's relatively realistic, but it's a true rental, and I think in a lot of sense. I don't think Garrett's very realistic, as Aiden Hutchinson pointed out. Kind of wild. I saw Jamo 10th on the drop percent rate, like 2.1%. Crazy. It's insane. He got so much better. I don't want to not pay him, but I think he'll be the interesting guy. I'm with you, man. Keep Za'Darius. I want to redo his deal a little bit, but keep Za'Darius around. I don't want to lose him. I really don't. But I think Hendrickson's the most interesting one. And like I said, I don't look. If you could redo his deal, or even if you made his cap number, if you made his entire cap number this year, if you made him 11 million for 1 year, I don't think you'd be able to go in free agency and confidently say you could find a guy that's going to give you the production that he'll give you at his age. Not for 1 year. 11 million cap at 1 year, you wouldn't be able to find that. You would be hard pressed to find a guy that's going to do that for you. So the fact that he wants back, if you could redo the deal where you can alleviate some of the stress when he's just not here, and you could just take more of it on this year, which I think is the biggest benefit of the cap going up, that to me is a move. Like because that's the only stress. The stress isn't much about now; it's more about the future. That to me is the only stress. So I would absolutely try to keep him around, especially with the number going up. All right, before we get out of here, man, shout out to BetUS, our sponsor of today's live stream. YouTube 150 is the code down in the description. 150% deposit match on your first deposit, 125% on the next two deposits. We do have the NFL draft odds over here, and I've been looking at these. I think that Shedeur Sanders is the best value bet, if you had to ask me. I'm not saying he should do it, but I think he is. I think Abdul Carter going 1 would shock the heck out of me. I don't see Connor going 1. I think that Shedeur is the best bet if I was going to put money on it. So if you want to get in on the action, man, try to take a swing. I don't really buy into the other ones. Like, could someone be crazy and take Dart? I guess, but I feel like that's someone trying to be slick. Like someone's going to put money on this. That's the vibe I get. Someone's trying to be slick betting on Jackson Dart. So I'd go Shedeur Sanders for value. But shout out to BetUS, man. Appreciate them for sponsoring today's live stream. Big Z and Hutch it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be so good to see those two together. But yeah, man, no, y'all, hey, I appreciate y'all joining, man. I'm gonna leave it here. May cut some of this, I don't know. But anyways, new video coming soon. Shamar Stewart, Hutch and Smith. Shamar Stewart is a video we have to do, but we have a different guy coming hopefully tomorrow. And then we'll see where we go from there, man. But next week, I'm gonna try to go live like every day. You know, we'll see how that plays out. I appreciate you, Ken. I appreciate y'all joining, man. And I will see you guys soon. We out. Have a great weekend and go Michigan. Come on now.